In the Democratic Republic of Congo, where history often walks with shadows, a verdict has thundered across the land. Joseph Kabila Kabange, the former president who ruled for nearly 2 decades, has been sentenced to death by a military court. The charges: treason, crimes against humanity, murder, torture, sexual violence, and insurrection. The sentence: final, absolute, and delivered in absentia. This is not just a legal decision. It is a rupture in the political fabric of a nation still healing from war, still searching for justice, and still haunted by the ghosts of power. Kabila, once seen as the silent general, a man who rarely spoke but always moved the levers of state, now finds himself condemned by the very system he once commanded. The court cited Article 7 of the Military Penal Code, which allows for a single sentence when multiple grave charges are proven. That sentence, in this case, was death. But the courtroom was not just a place of law. It was a stage for memory. For the victims of Eastern Congo, for the displaced families of Goma and Bukavu, for the mothers who buried their children in silence, this verdict was a voice long denied. The prosecution argued that Kabila had supported M23 rebels, an armed group responsible for atrocities in the eastern provinces. The evidence presented included witness testimony, video footage, and intercepted communications. The court also ordered Kabila to pay nearly $50 billion in damages to the state and victims, a sum that speaks not just of financial restitution, but to the scale of suffering. Kabila did not attend the trial. Reports suggest he has resided in South Africa since 2023, though he made a controversial appearance in M23-held Goma in May 2025. His legal team, according to some sources, was absent. Others claim they were present, but limited in scope. The trial began in July, shortly after the Senate lifted his immunity in May, a move that cleared the path for prosecution. And so, the gavel fell, not on a man alone, but on an era, on a legacy built in silence, sustained by alliances, and now unraveling in the language of law. President Felix Tshisekedi, Kabila's successor, has long accused him of undermining national security. Their relationship, once a fragile power-sharing arrangement, deteriorated into open rivalry. Tshisekedi's government has since suspended Kabila's party, seized assets, and launched investigations into former officials. The verdict, then, is not just judicial. It is deeply political. But the implications stretch far beyond Kinshasa. In eastern Congo, M23 rebels continue to hold strategic territory. Cities like Goma and Bukavu remain under threat. Thousands have been killed. Hundreds of thousands displaced. The humanitarian crisis deepens, and the verdict adds a new layer of complexity. For many, the question is not whether Kabila is guilty. It is whether justice can truly be served in a nation where power often shields itself from consequence. International reactions have begun to surface. Human rights organizations are calling for transparency and due process. Regional bodies like the African Union and SADC are monitoring the situation. South Africa, where Kabila reportedly resides, faces diplomatic pressure over potential extradition. But with the death penalty on the table, legal and ethical debates are inevitable. And yet, for the Congolese people, this moment is not about diplomacy. It is about dignity, about the right to demand accountability, even from those who once seemed untouchable. The verdict also raises questions about Congo's future. Will this embolden reformers? Or will it deepen divisions? Will it lead to reconciliation or retaliation? In a country where justice has often been delayed, denied, or distorted, this ruling could mark a turning point or a new chapter in a long saga of struggle. In the East, the war continues. In the capital, the verdict stands. And in the hearts of millions, the story of Joseph Kabila is being rewritten. Not by propaganda, not by power, but by the people's demand for truth. This is not the end. Appeals may follow. Political maneuvers will unfold. But the symbolism of the sentence is already etched into Congo's collective memory. The man who once ruled in silence now faces the loudest judgment of all. And the nation, battered but unbroken, watches with eyes wide open. The trial of Joseph Kabila began not with a bang, but with a whisper. For years, allegations had swirled of corruption, of complicity, of silence in the face of suffering. But it was not until May 2025, when the Senate lifted his immunity, that the legal machinery began to move. The military court convened in Kinshasa. The charges were read. The evidence laid bare. Witnesses spoke of massacres in Ituri, of disappearances in North Kivu, of rape used as a weapon of war. Prosecutors argued that Kabila's support for M23 was not passive. It was strategic, deliberate, and devastating. The defense, if present, was muted. Kabila himself remained abroad, issuing statements through intermediaries. He denied all charges, accused the government of political persecution, and called the court an instrument of oppression. But the court pressed on. Article 7 of the Military Penal Code became the cornerstone of the prosecution's strategy. It allowed for a single, unified sentence when multiple grave offenses are proven. The court chose the most severe, death. And with that, the trial became more than a legal proceeding. It became a reckoning. The verdict sent shockwaves through Congo's political landscape. Kabila's party, once dominant, now faces suspension. Assets are being seized. Allies are distancing themselves. And President Tshisekedi, long at odds with his predecessor, has emerged as a central figure in the push for accountability. But critics warn of politicization. They argue that the trial was rushed, that due process was compromised, that the judiciary is being weaponized. Supporters counter that justice delayed is justice denied, and that Congo must confront its past to build its future. In the streets of Kinshasa, opinions are divided. Some celebrate, others mourn, but all recognize that something irreversible has occurred. Beyond Congo's borders, the verdict has stirred diplomatic waters. South Africa, where Kabila reportedly resides, faces calls for extradition, but with the death penalty in play, legal hurdles abound. The African Union has called for restraint. Human rights groups demand transparency. The United Nations is monitoring the situation closely. And in Rwanda, where M23's alleged backers reside, tensions are rising. The verdict is not just a Congolese story. It is a regional flashpoint, a test of international law, a mirror held up to the world. Joseph Kabila once stood as a symbol of stability. He inherited power after his father's assassination. He navigated war, elections, and uneasy coalitions. He ruled with quiet force. But now, that legacy is under fire. The death sentence is not just a punishment. It is a statement. A declaration that no one is above the law, that even silence can be judged, that history, when summoned, will speak. And so, the Congo watches. The river flows, the drums beat, and the verdict echoes through courtrooms, through villages, through the soul of a nation that refuses to forget.